Yo, what's up, family? So, I want to talk to you about something very interesting. And that interesting thing is people's varying levels of sensitivity. Some people are extremely sensitive, some people are not, okay? And specifically, I'm talking about sensitivity towards rejection, because sensitivity can be virtuous in the right context, all right? Like energetic sensitivity is a beautiful thing. Being very sensitive or like thin-skinned or very reactive is not such a great thing, okay? So in this particular example, I've got somebody in mind, and this is a person on Twitter, and I'm not going to name them. I don't think that's a particularly productive thing to do, but let's just call them Bob, all right? I was following Bob, Bob was following me, and I kind of jived with what they were saying, so whatever. I didn't have a particularly strong opinion of Bob. But one day I saw Bob say something pretty inflammatory about someone I'm very close with. And so I'm not going to put up with that, and I'll distance myself. So I unfollowed. Nothing personal against Bob himself. I'm sure he's a great person, right? It's just I don't agree with what he was saying and could no longer show my support of that. That's all, right? But it was soon revealed that Bob is a very sensitive person and very touchy when it comes to rejection. And this is how we know that. As soon as I unfollowed, I'm telling you, like within like half an hour, Bob had reciprocated the same, which, it's an understandable response. It's fine. So Bob unfollowed, I'm like, okay, whatever. But then, within the next following days, what was really interesting to me was how Bob led a campaign, a series of little snarky, snide remarks that just had this undertone of resentment and bitterness that is just unmistakable. Like somebody with zero context of the situation could come in, an independent third party with no previous idea of the dynamic there. They would be able to detect, I don't know, that kind of reads a little bit weird. Why is he like salty, right? And what I think is really funny is how progressively over the next few days, Bob kept getting antsy, is that a word? Antsier and antsier. Just being strangely argumentative, looking for the most derisive way to nitpick, like just a very, it makes you stand back and be like, are you okay, bro? Do you need a hug, right? And just out of curiosity, like I find the whole ordeal funny. I find it amusing. I find it educational because it reveals, one, not only a lot about Bob himself, but about humans in general, all right? You can allow every experience with every person teach you something, right? So I find this like quite amusing. So, I kept tabs because I want to see. And it's completely from I hope you can hear it in the tone. There's zero resentment. It's just more of a like, aren't you a fascinating specimen? Like, what's going on there, buddy? Like, why did it hurt you so much, right? To the point of then going and subtweeting and then making these, very obviously about me kind of comments. Like, why do I occupy that much mental real estate? That's what I seriously wanted to find out. I find that interesting, that a simple unfollow is enough to convert somebody from being a avid supporter to a quite vocal antagonist, okay? I think that's an interesting thing worth further inquiry, right? And what it actually says about Bob is that Bob has a very weak sense of self, okay? Because somebody who likes themselves and somebody who is sure of their value does not behave in such a reactive way to such a small, I don't even consider it, but a slight, such a small slight, okay? Reason being, people who aren't sure whether they are worthy of being liked derive their entire value from whether others like them, okay? So that shouldn't be shocking to anybody. the most insecure people, and you can spot them, okay? How do you know when someone's insecure? When they're constantly looking for the approval of other people, okay? That's the most obvious tell. You know that. That's not news to you. So, reason being is because they can't give it to themselves, okay? They are either completely lacking in awareness of their own value, or they are in complete knowing of their lack of value. So they must get it from other people. All right, classic example, everyone knows that girl that is a bit too much of a, I'm going to keep using nice words, but shows a bit too much skin and maybe seeks male validation a bit too much, okay? Do you think that girl likes herself, is sure in who she is? Okay, it's the same thing here. So what's the whole point of this, right? Well, a few things. Number one, if you don't love yourself, if you don't give yourself validation, if you aren't aware by your own knowing, if you can't sit in your room by yourself and be perfect and think that you're a cool person to hang out with, right? Then there's something wrong. And I strongly suggest you go and do whatever it takes, whatever is necessary, whatever self-work, whatever demons you need to face, whatever wounds you need to heal in order to fix that. Until that happens, you're going to be dependent not only on the whole world, but other people to make you feel like you are good and worthy. And that is just not a way to go through life. It's just not, okay? The second interesting thing about this is, in our specific example, Bob's response. Bob is a very, again, I have no hate or animosity towards Bob. I'm just using it for example. If I did have hate against this individual, I would name them and I would be a bit more, I don't even know what the word is. I would describe them in greater detail so it's more obvious about who I'm talking about. By the way that I've talked about this, it should be impossible for anyone listening to this to know the individual I'm referring to. I'll keep it that way. But this person has since taken a very interesting, let's call it, entered a phase in which they're very critical about other people in general. I'm so sorry that I did this to you, Bob. You're probably listening because you do keep tabs. It's quite apparent. But I'll just end this with saying, isn't it interesting how the people who scream at others the loudest often have, it's often a mask, it's often a smoke screen so that people don't look at them, all right? I'll give you the perfect example. Chihuahuas, right? They big bark, 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 bark. Why are Chihuahuas so fucking loud, right? Why do they put on this big, bold, like, bare teeth, I'm a hard guy? It's because that's the only mechanism that it has for survival. Because the Chihuahua knows any dog could break its neck with even just a small little bit of force. Okay, so that's what it has to do. Rather than being a big, let's say a pit bull who can kill people, the pit bulls are rarely, they're not outwardly aggressive. They keep cool, they're calm, and then they can just, kill babies, right? I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying look at the demeanor, okay? You can tell a lot by demeanor. Secondly, it's a lot to do with suppression, all right? And it's a bit of a gross example, but it's just the truest, and you know this to be true, so you can get a good feel about what I'm talking about. If you look in politics, specifically Republicans, right? The ones who are often, this is so often the case, right? The ones who are most staunchly against gay people, what happens, right? Over and over and over again, there's countless examples of this. They get caught, sending the pic of their dick to like their male secretary or the interns, or they get caught at a gay orgy, right? Now think about the psychological process that's happening there. They themselves are gay, and they are the most passionate people about, installing anti-gay legislation. I want you to think about the human mind and how that works, right? There is the thing they don't like, so they act outwardly against it in order to somehow balance and rationalize or try to do something about that thing, okay? I'm just going to leave it at that. Perhaps you'd like to listen to this again. There was a lot to cover. I want you to think about it and just note how interesting it is that when people are outwardly against something, more often than not, they are part of the biggest culprits. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this.